If you've spent 20 or 30 years in policing, the current environment probably feels heavier than anything you've experienced before. Budgets are tighter. Calls for service don't seem to slow down. Public trust feels more fragile. And expectations on police keep expanding, often without additional clarity or capacity. What's important to say out loud, especially to those of us inside the profession, is this. This pressure is not the result of individual officers failing or police services suddenly losing their way. It's the result of policing operating in an environment that has fundamentally changed. Many of the issues driving demand today, mental health crisis, chronic social disorder, vulnerability tied to housing and addiction, were never designed to be resolved through incident response alone. Yet response is still where most police time, resources, and performance measures are concentrated. At the same time, police are being asked to prevent harm, build trust, and work collaboratively with other systems without changing how policing itself is designed. That tension is what makes policing feel under siege. This is not about enforcement no longer being necessary. Enforcement remains essential. But enforcement alone is now being asked to carry problems it was never designed to handle on its own. The result is something every police leader recognizes: repeat calls, stretched frontline capacity, growing scrutiny, and rising cost. When that happens, conversations about accountability and sustainability become unavoidable. This series is about how policing adapts without losing its authority, its purpose, or its legitimacy. Community safety was never meant to belong to one institution alone. At the foundation of modern policing, legitimacy depended on public consent, and safety was a shared responsibility. Over time, especially through the mid-20th century, policing professionalized. Enforcement became the dominant operating model. That shift delivered real gains: consistency, authority, and public order. But it also narrowed how we thought about community safety. As enforcement became the center of gravity, prevention and early intervention moved to the margins. When community policing re-emerged in the 1970s, it came back with good intentions. But in many services, it was implemented through specialized units rather than how the entire service operates. That decision had unintended consequences. Community policing became something some people did. Enforcement became what most people did. Over time, this created two cultures inside the same organization, even though community policing was never meant to be separate. Dozens of books, frameworks, and training programs followed. Most reinforced the same assumption: engagement belongs over here, response belongs over there. This didn't happen because police leaders didn't care. It happened because structure drives behavior. When engagement is isolated, it becomes fragile. When response dominates, it becomes the default. This wasn't a failure of values. It was due to a lack of conceptual clarity that led to a design problem. And design problems don't get fixed with more messaging or training. Regardless of the values on the wall, you can't message your way out of a design problem. You've got to actually rebuild how the organization works and how different units interact. What's missing is clarity. Real clarity about what community policing was always meant to be, which is exactly what I will talk about next. At this point, a fair question comes up. If community policing has been discussed for decades, what actually changes now? The answer is clarity, which comes with the CSWB approach. To overcome the silos created by a misunderstood approach to community policing, CSWB gives us a structured way to understand how integrated, sustainable community safety actually gets achieved by police, by community, and by social service partners working together. CSWB helps make community policing a service-wide approach in which all branches contribute, each distinctly and legitimately, across the CSWB continuum to reduce repeat demand, stabilize neighborhoods, and restore safety and well-being. It is policing carried out with the community, not just in the community, using proactive engagement, prevention, and proportionate enforcement as complementary tools before, during, and after incidents. CSWB recognizes a four-pronged approach to achieve community safety together: social development, prevention, risk intervention, and incident response. Unlike the common perception that policing is limited to enforcement and response, police already operate across all four. We just haven't always named it, or designed our structure and work around it. Of course, when immediate harm is occurring, police must act decisively and lawfully. Incident response and enforcement remain essential. What CSWB makes visible is both the broader context and the full cycle of work: the conditions that contribute to social disorder and violence, and the actions that happen before and after incidents, preventing escalation, stabilizing people and places, and reducing future demand. This is work police cannot do alone. And this is where community policing, as a service-wide approach, finally makes operational sense. All officers are community police officers, but their roles differ. Some focus primarily on response and enforcement. Others focus primarily on engagement and prevention. Both are legitimate. Both are necessary. The real tension was never enforcement versus engagement. It was confusion versus clarity. CSWB gives leaders the language to explain how policing fits within a broader safety system, without surrendering authority or responsibility. It also clarifies boundaries. Police do not replace social services. Police do not solve social problems alone. Police work alongside others, each doing what they do best. That clarity protects policing. Proactive engagement remains part of frontline policing, just as enforcement remains part of neighborhood policing. What varies is the ratio of responsibility, not the legitimacy of the work. When roles are clear across all four levels of intervention, the organization starts to reinforce itself. Engagement builds trust, and prevention reduces calls for service. Once leaders accept the logic of CSWB, the next question is always the hardest. How do you actually embed this approach across the service? This is where many good ideas stall. Operationalizing CSWB is not about launching programs. It's about how the organization is structured and a culture change is supported. When policing remains almost entirely response-driven, prevention struggles to survive. When engagement is isolated, it loses impact. The challenge is not choosing between response and engagement. The challenge is designing them to reinforce each other. That starts with appropriate structure and role clarity on both sides. Not everyone does everything. Frontline officers focus primarily on incident response and enforcement. Engagement-focused teams concentrate on prevention and coordination. That requires a dynamic, hybrid structure, where coordination and accountability follow function and purpose, not just traditional linear reporting lines. One way this looks in practice: some CSWB teams are placed geographically in the neighborhoods that need the most attention, but their work is managed centrally to ensure a standard approach across divisions, have consistent responses to cross-cutting trends, coordinate with external partners that have city-wide roles, and share measurement across the service. This is illustrative. Every jurisdiction will configure it differently. The point is the logic behind roles and functions, not the exact model. The connective tissue between both sides is the frontline officer. Frontline officers aren't just responders. They're the eyes and ears of the system. When they spot a repeat issue or emerging risk, that intelligence can be handed forward to engagement teams who carry it. That handoff is what turns individual incidents into system-level action. When engagement teams reduce disorder, frontline demand drops. When frontline staff generate trust due to proactive engagement, they make the job easier for the community engagement side. The two sides feed each other. That's not philosophy. That's load management. Continuity matters too. Communities experience safety issues over months and years, not shift cycles. Sustained engagement has to be built into the structure itself, through geographic assignment, clear handoffs, and team-based relationships that outlast any individual officer. When alignment is present, when everyone understands how their role connects to the whole, the organization holds together under pressure. Not because everyone does the same thing, but because everyone knows how their piece fits. Policing is being examined more closely than ever. Cost, trust, effectiveness. Police executives are being asked, why do the same problems keep coming back? Why does demand keep climbing? If those questions go unanswered, the case for shifting resources away from policing gets easier to make. Integrated CSWB and FLD, or engagement and response, changes that conversation. When prevention reduces demand, response improves. When response improves, trust improves. When trust improves, policing regains its legitimacy. And when officers work inside a system that makes sense, where their role is clear and their work connects to real outcomes, they're proud of the job. Motivation goes up. People stay. For police leaders, CSWB gives you a defensible way to explain your role, not as the organization that's supposed to solve everything, but as a critical part of a coordinated system, doing what only you can do. Services that stay purely response-driven will keep absorbing pressure with no relief. Services that redesign for prevention and partnership protect frontline capacity, build legitimacy, and make the case for sustained investment. That's not ideology. That's organizational survival. Progress starts with leadership conversations about structure, about what success actually looks like. Every jurisdiction will answer those questions differently, but the direction of travel is the same. Integrated community safety doesn't weaken policing or social services. It protects it. The question now is whether police executives are willing to design their organizations so that shared responsibility works, not as a value on the wall, but as the way the work gets done every day.